Not yet. Not yet.
Where's my glasses? But big news on that.
We're
front.
live, by the way.
This doesn't matter. Baby's first bottle today. So
How'd it go?
it's good. It's good.
What kind of
So
bottles
that's
do you
gonna change.
What kind of bottles?
No idea. It has a measuring thing on the side, but we're doing a lot of bottles.
I would take your seats. Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
I guess I should make my joke. Those who come to services for Shabbat Shuvah don't have to fast on Yom Kippur. It's written in a minor tractate. Yeah, I know. Anyway, we officially have our new prayer book, Mishkan Tefillah. No more experimenting with it. It's official. 128 Hinei Tov. Special thanks to Mark Cohen.
הנה מה טוב ומנעים שבת אחים גם יחד. 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 How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. הנה מה טוב ומנעים שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומנעים שבת אחים גם יחד. שלום עליכם, סלאם עליכום, שלום good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. Hine matot umanayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matot umanayim shevet achim gam yachad.
We turn to page 124, 124 at the top, and I invite you to join me in this reading. We enter the sanctuary to welcome Shabbat. Within these walls, we sit surrounded by numberless generations. Our ancestors built the synagogue as a visible sign of God's presence in their midst. Throughout our long history and our endless wanderings, it has endured. A beacon of truth, love, and justice for all humanity. Its presence guided our ancestors through lives of righteousness, holding up to them a vision of their truest selves. Now we, in our turn, come into the sanctuary to affirm the sacredness of our lives. May we enter this place in peace. May holiness wrap around us as we cross its threshold. Weariness, doubt, the flaws within our human hearts, the harshness of the weak, let these drop away at the door. In the brightness of Shabbat, let peace settle upon us as we lift our heart in prayers. We turn to page 120 as we light our Shabbat candles.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehatlik ner shel Shabbat.
For those here with us, for those who are able, we rise together, and for those at home, we rise in spirit for Kiddush 123.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hakafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu b'shabbat kodsho be'ahava u'b'ratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'asei bereishit ki hu yom techila lemigra'ei kodesh Zeichel Yitziat Mitzrayim Kivanu Bacharta Beotanu Kidashta Mikol Hamim B'Shabbat Kodshecha Be'ahava u'b'ratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat.
Amen. L'chaim. Please be seated. We turn to page 127, 127, and please join me. There are days when we think things for ourselves and measure failure, but what we do not gain. On Shabbat, we seek not to acquire, but to share. There are days when we exploit nature as if it were a horn of plenty. that can never be exhausted. On Shabbat, we stand in wonder before the mystery of creation. There are days we act as we care nothing for the rights of others. On Shabbat, we remember that justice is our duty and a better world our goal. So we embrace Shabbat, day of rest, day of wonder, day of peace. We continue with Lecha Dodi on page 138.
לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לחנדותי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. שמור וזכור בנבורך תשמיענו, אל המיוחד אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשם ולתפארת בלי תהילה. לחנדותי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לחנדותי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי מקור הברכה. מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשם בתחילה. לחנדותי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לחנדותי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורך ומאורי, אורי, אורי, שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לחנדותי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לחנדותי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
We rise together to greet Shabbat HaMelkah.
בואי ושלום עטרת מלכה, בשמחה ובזוהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לחנדותי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לחנדותי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
The bottom of page 145. Teach me, O God, a blessing, a prayer, on the mystery of a withered leaf, unripened roots so fair, on the freedom to see, to sense, to breathe, to know, to hope, to despair. Teach my lips a blessing, a hymn of praise, as each morning and night you renew your days. Lest my day be today as the one before, lest routine set my ways. And we continue with the Chetzik Hadish right there on page 144.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא תפרח חירותי וימליך מלכותי. בחייכון וביומייכון ובחי דכל בית ישראל. בגלה, בגלה ובזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעלם ולעלמי עלמיה יתברך. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תאמירן מעלמן ואמרו Amen.
We rise together and we turn to pages 146 and 147.
Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared?
The top of page 147, and please join me. There is one who sings the song of his own life, finding everything within himself. There is one who leaves the circle of herself and sings the song of her people. There is one whose voice rings with the song of humanity, hoping for the highest perfection. And there is one who rises even higher, uniting with all creatures, with all worlds, filling the universe with song. Nevarech, let us bless.
Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Le'olam va'ed. Yadadai-dai-dai, 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 yadadai-dai-dai.
We turn to page 149 at the top, and please join me. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, for whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, for whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, Hamariv Aravim. We continue on the next page.
Ahavat olam Beit Yisrael, Amcha ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, Chukim u'mishpatim, Otanu limadta. Al kein Adonai Eloheinu, B'shochbeinu uvkumeinu, Nasiach mechukecha, V'nismach b'divrei Toratecha, U'b'mitzvotecha, Le'olam va'ed, Ki heim chayeinu, Be'orech yameinu, U'bahem nehegeh yomam v'layla. Be'ahavatecha al tasir mimenu le'olamim, Baruch atah Adonai אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. ברוך שם כבוד, שם כבוד, מלכותו לעולם, לעולם ועד. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, בשיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, לחיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
Top of page 157. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land. The winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there's no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. Our song of freedom and celebration, Michamocha, on the next page.
Bye bye bim bidi bye, bye bye bim bye, bye bye bim bidi bye, bye bye bim bye, die die da 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 da, bye bye bim bye, die da 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 da, bye bye bim bye. Mi chamocha b'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, Torah tehilot osefel, Torah tehilot osefel, מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקע ים לפני משה ומרים, זה אלינו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד.
The top of page 161. Please join me. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be a shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up, waiting to do your will. Or Hashkivenu 160.
Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamideinu shomreinu, the shelter of your peace over us. Guide us in wisdom, compassion, and trust. Hashivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, V'hamideinu shomreinu l'chaim. Save us for the sake of your name. Shield us from hatred, sorrow, and pain. Hashivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, V'hamideinu shomreinu
The top of page 163. We are a people in whom the past endures, in whom the present is inconceivable without moments gone by. The Exodus lasted a moment, and a moment enduring forever. What happened once upon a time happens all the time. We continue with Vishamru.
Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam merit olam, beini u'bein b'nei Yisrael, oti le'olam le'olam, ki sheishet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim et haaretz, u'bayom hashvi'i Shabbat vayinafash.
The middle of page 165. Prayer invites God's presence to suffuse our spirits, God's will to prevail in our lives. Prayer may not bring water to parched fields, nor mend a broken bridge, nor rebuild a ruined city. But prayer can water an arid soul, mend a broken heart, rebuild a weakened will. For those who are able, we rise together for our tefillah, 166.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu v'Imoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim v'Konei Hakol, v'Zocher Chastei Avot v'Imahot, u'mevii geula livnei v'neihem, למען שמו באהבה. זוכרנו לחיים, מלך חפץ בחיים, וכותבנו בספר החיים, למענך אלוהים חיים. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי מתים אתה רב להושיע. מוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה. מי כמוך ברחמים, זוכר יצוריו לחיים ברחמים, ונאמן אתה להחיות מתים. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני המלך הקדוש.
The top of page 173. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. We continue with our Ritzeh on the next page.
Ritzeh Adonai Eloheinu be'amcha Yisrael u'tefilatam be'ahava tekabel u'tehil leratzon tamid avodat Yisrael. Yisrael Amecha El Karov Lechol Kor'af Enei Elavatecha Bechoneinu Shefoch Ruchacha Betechesena Eineinu Beshuvcha LeTzion. Berachamim Baruch atah Adonai hamachazir shechinato
the top of page 179, and please join me. Grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Bless our country as a safeguard of peace, its advocate among the nations. May contentment reign within our borders, health and happiness within our homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among the inhabitants of every land. Plant virtue in every soul, and may the love of thy name hallow every home and every heart. Praise are you, Eternal One, who blesses our people with peace.
Shalom Rav Al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Netov beinecha levarech et amcha Yisrael bechol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. בספר חיים ברכה ושלום, ברכה ושלום ופרנסה טובה, ברכה ושלום ניזכר וניכתב לפניך. אנחנו וכל עמך בית ישראל לחיים טובים ולשלום. ברוך אתה אדוני עושה השלום.
We take a few moments for silent prayer.
יהיו לרצון אמרי פי, יהיו לרצון אמרי פי, מהגיון ליבי לפניך. אדוני צורי וגואלי. Oh, may the words of my mouth, the meditation of my heart be acceptable before you. O God, my rock and my redeemer. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, באמרו ואמרו
At this moment in our service, we take time to think of those in our community who are in need of healing of body and spirit. On this Shabbat, we especially think of Linda Applebaum, Sydney Silverman Bailey, Sophia Berry, Margaret Bell, Harold Seitlin, Deborah Chargois, Karen Edwards, Emmeline Fries, Ruth Grafman Fromstein, Edward Goldberg, Barbara Goldstone, Elaine Gross, Josie Hatfield, Evelyn Held, Donald Maida Himmel, Norma Jill Jacobson, Corey Kessler, Laney Klein, Bart Kolber, Jerry Lapidus, Wayne Lewis, Jeffrey Muss, David Siegel, Liz Slive, Chrissy St. Charles, Brenda Weinstein, Jesse Weisberg, and Elisa Rosemary Whitehead. If you're thinking of a loved one or friend for those who are with us tonight, we invite you to share that name as my eyes meet yours. For those names mentioned out loud and for those names that are still in our hearts, we turn to our Misha Berach, our prayer for healing, middle of page 371, 371.
Misha Berach, מקור הברכה לאמותינו. May the source of strength who blessed the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misha Berach imotenu mekor habracha la'avoteinu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
It's traditional that for Shabbat Shuvah, I plan on doing an hour sermon. Is that okay? Here we are in Parshat Velech, almost at the conclusion of the book of Deuteronomy, and just hopefully a brief teaching this evening in between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And I'm going to read for you, beginning with chapter 31, verse 1, and just a couple of verses, and then we'll go from there and what I think it means for us and where we are in the world. Moses went and spoke these words to all of Israel, and he said to them, I am 120 years old today. And to remember, for biblical writers, if Moses lived to 120, he lived to 120. It's not like he was 50 in dog years. He was 120. I can no longer go out and come in, for Adonai has said to me, you shall not cross this Jordan. And again, this is a reminder of the ultimate punishment, that because Moses took credit for using power at the waters of Meribah, and therefore not giving credit to God, he was unable to enter Eretz Israel. And he lamented, he apologized, but at the end of the day, God would not allow him to return to Israel. Adonai your God, he will cross before you, and he will destroy these nations before you, and you shall possess them. And Joshua, he shall cross over you as Adonai has spoken. Now, again, Moses dies at 120, and this is upon conclusion of his death. And nevertheless, even as he's about to die, he still cannot enter into Eretz Yisrael. And the next person in charge, Joshua, will fulfill the mission to engage in the retaking of Eretz Yisrael. Here's what our great sages say about this parashah, especially these first couple of verses. After Moses finally fulfills the brit with the people of Israel, the covenant with Israel, and he's hopeful that they will understand the significance of following the Torah, he made this public oration to them, and then they went back into their camps. Then Moses went to his own dwelling, and he gave a final goodbye to the 12 tribes of Israel, and this is according to Nachmanides. And when he went to these 12 different tribes, 12 different camps, he was consoling them of his impending death. And their sadness over his departure would not cloud their joy in sealing this covenant. Okay, so I want you to imagine the scene according to the Torah. That Moses is visiting each camp because he knows that he is going to die. This is his final moment on earth. And in Jewish tradition, it's our obligation to comfort the mourner when someone else dies. But here Moses is going to these 12 camps with his death to making sure that he is consoling them because of what the journey is about to be. And finally, we learn from Jewish mysticism that because Moses knew that this was his last day on earth, the most holy and Hamisha and righteous people have a higher level of spirituality, and they're able to tell when the soul begins to depart from the body to enter into the Shemayims. And as difficult it is to lament Moses' death, it's almost a beautiful way to celebrate his life. And the fact that he knew it elevates his spirit, and it makes him unlike most people in our tradition. And when I was thinking about this parashah, I was reminded of the anniversary, which is tomorrow, which is 9/11. And for my Erev Rosh Hashanah sermon, I spoke at great length about this, where we were 20 years later, what the country was then and what it looks like now. And I talked about two stories that are personal. One in San Diego, Diane Gladstone, of blessed memory, who was stranded on the 70th floor. A friend of hers broke her leg, and unfortunately, they were not able to escape. And Ernie Wiltshire, of blessed memory, he was killed in the Pentagon, and today they dedicated a conference room to his memory of the commitment he did to the military. But in the Wall Street Journal, today's edition, they gave a whole special section of where we are as a country. And part of these articles reflected on people's lives that were taken away. And I came across one particular article about Todd Beamer of United 93, and I felt that it has some type of connection to Moses' death. For those who know about Flight 93, this is when the passengers took it to their own accord to attack the terrorists in order to prevent more death. And according to eyewitnesses, those who were on the plane and those who heard him, who were able to make phone calls, Todd Beamer really stood out. And according to the first-hand accounts, the 32-year-old software salesman was incredibly calm almost like this Moses figure. And when he realized that he wasn't going to make it, that this moment was going to be his final moment on earth in this planet, his words were, "Let's roll," in order to go after the terrorist. Throughout the ordeal, we learn from descriptions that his voice was devoid of any stress. He sounded so tranquil and made me begin, and this is the witnesses again, the authenticity of urgency of his phone call. He had this calming effect, even though he knew that this was his final moment. And when I think of this story, and I think of a story from tradition, it's almost at two opposite ends of the spectrum. One, a figure who lived to 120, and one who was killed at 32 years old. But both figures knew that this was their moment on earth. And both displayed such courage and compassion during such difficult times. And so the question for us remains today is, what do we do with stories like this? And how do we remember the memories of Diane Gladstone and Ernie Wiltshire and the 3,000 that were taken away? I think our job is always to keep their memories alive. And I think as a country, the more we move on from 9/11, I think the collective memory begins to weaken. And I think we have a moral obligation as we retell the Torah in a couple weeks, back to the beginning, that we really take to heed the significance of remembrance. Because if Moses was able to calm Bnei Yisrael, and if Todd Beamer of blessed memory went down fighting for this country, I think we owe it to them to make sure that their story lives on. Shabbat Shalom. We rise together for our Aleinu 586.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ולמשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
Ka'asher Haim Atzmam Avdo Ve'einam. There are stars up above, so far away we only see their light. Long, long after the star itself is gone. And so it is with the people that we love. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. But the stars that light up the darkest night, these are the lights that guide us as we live our days. These are the ways that we remember. On this Shabbat, we recall the yortzites of Andrew David Abrams, Bessie L. Binder, Samuel Bittner, Beatrice Rosenberg Blumberg, Herman Blumberg, Eva Camp, Stanley F. Cohen, Tessie Stein Cohen, Herbert Cohen, Jacob Cotton, Ralph Davis, Isidore Paul Friedman, Joanne Sachs Friedman, Rose Raff Goldstein, Jacob S. Harris, Malin A. Harstel Jr., Will Holloway, Alan G. Howard, May Caden, Luis Levine Cumbar, Sadie Silverfield Levin, Carrie Crine Levine, Hyman Maurice Levine Sr., Edna T. London, Anita Goldman Marcus, Marjorie Margolin, Jerry Markovitz, Ike May, Dorothy McGarrian, Ralph R. Mitnick, Maurice Ofson, Louis Phillips, Lawrence L. Sachs, Maurice Salloway, Ida Herman Schultz, Lorna Schwartz, Sidney Seineman Jr., Ida Siegel, Paul Shapiro Sr., Albert Sugarman, Raina Jean Simons, Robert Samuel Slate, Ryan Stanton, Cy Stern, B. Thompson, Leon Judah Weinberger, Larry Weiner, Ernie Wilcher, Lynn Otis Wilmuth, and Ruth Wolf. Our heartfelt condolences in the recent passing of Bradley Block, uncle of Meredith and Daniel Dresden, cousin of Alan and Sandra Berman, Robert and Allison Berman, Ben and Allison Wheel, Priscilla Weath, mother of Brian and Heather, Susie Ofson, sister of Kathy Freeman and David Ofson, Steve Petrosky, nephew of Mark Petrosky, Margaret Sisson, mother of Jane Siegel, Pauline Cohen-Witt, mother of Elaine Witt, and the 3,000 lives that were taken from us 20 years ago. May their memories forever be a blessing. We rise together as a united congregation and as a united country. For Mourners Kaddish, 598. Yikadal Vikadash Shemei Rabbah, Bioma Divrach Rote Vamlich Machute, Bechayachon of Yomechon, Uvchayit Kol Beit Yisrael, Bagala Uzman Kori Vimru.
Amen.
Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevarach Le'olam Olamei Maya, Yit Barach, V'Shabak, Yit Ba'ar, Yit Romam, Yit Naseh, Vita Dar, Vita Lev, Vita Lal, Shmei Dekutsha, Brichu, Le'ela Min Kol Birchata V'Shirata, Tushbechata V'Nechamata, Damin Ram Bioma V'Imru.
Amen.
Yehei Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya, V'Chaim Aleina V'Yakol Yisrael, V'Imru.
Amen.
Osei Shalom B'Imromav, Hu Yaseh Shalom, Aleina V'Yakol Yisrael, V'Imru. Amen.
Ose Shalom B'Imromav, Hu Yaseh Shalom, Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, me'imeru. Amen.
We conclude our Shabbat service, something that we feel is fitting for our republic, with God Bless America 680. There you go.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbos.
Gemar Chatima Tova.
Gemar Chatima Tova.